Hey everybody, today we're diving into how your nonprofit can maximize Google Ad grants, and we have the perfect expert here to guide us. Please help me welcome Todd Vigil, a data-driven nonprofit marketing veteran with over 12 years of sector experience, including serving as a CMP for the Phoenix Symphony and leading marketing for the Heard Museum and Barrow Neurological Foundation. Todd currently shapes future sector leaders as instructors and members of the Leadership Council at Arizona State University's Nonprofit Management Institute. In 2021, he founded Elite Hub, which is a firm dedicated to helping nonprofits unlock the full power of the Google Ad Grant. He's a resident of Arizona, Phoenix to be exact, and he was recognized as a Phoenix 40 Under 40 honoree and speaks naturally about the digital and nonprofit marketing leadership. Todd is here to show us how to turn Google's resources into real-world impact. Todd, the floor is yours.
Those of you. All right, thanks. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for that introduction, Morgan. As Morgan mentioned, I was a longtime marketer. We'll go through that briefly here in a second. And I'm just here to talk to you about the Google Ad Grant. For those of you who don't know what the Google Ad Grant is, it is a generous program that's been around since 2003. And I find it's often underutilized, especially in smaller or mid-sized nonprofits. And the goal of today's webinar is to just, one, educate you on what that is, how to apply, and how to get started if you want to try to tackle this yourself. And we'll talk about the pros and cons of that in this. And then we should have plenty of time for questions at the end. As Morgan mentioned, I was a nonprofit marketer for a long time. I was the head of marketing at the Phoenix Symphony, the Heard Museum, which is a large American Indian art museum here in Phoenix. I also serve on the Leadership Council for ASU Lodestar, which is their nonprofit sector at Arizona State. And the reason I tell you all this is, one, I've been in your shoes, so I know how resource-strapped nonprofits are, and that you have a million hats to wear and don't know how to get everything done. When I was at these organizations, these were all very large organizations, all $10 to $50 million organizations. So we had the benefit of hiring marketing agencies to do a lot of marketing stuff for us. But I always felt there was a niche out there for someone to help educate the smaller and mid-sized nonprofits on the ad grant service, and even potentially offer a service on that. So I'm going to walk you through all of that today, and hopefully just get you peeked in it and get you started on it if it's something you want to explore for your organization. So just at a high overview here, the Google Ad Grant can be very mystifying, but it's not. It's very easy to apply, and I'll show you that here in just a second. It's essentially a $330 a day ad credit on paid search advertising. So those are paid search advertising on Google. So if someone's searching Thai restaurant near me, or nonprofits near me, Boys and Girls Club near me, anything like that, you potentially can do that. If you don't know, Google is essentially world's least transparent auction. Every time you search, a very fast, very quick auction is happening behind the scenes. And Google's trying to match up a couple of things. One is ad quality, user intent, and then obviously who's willing to pay the most for that. And that's what Google Ads is putting all of those things together so that the best ad gets shown to the best people at the right time. Just before we jump into that, I want to just highlight Google Ad Grant is actually part of Google for Nonprofits. Just about every 501c3 will be eligible for Google for Nonprofits. And that includes 4 things. One is Google Workspace. So if you currently are using just a regular Gmail for your nonprofit, or if you are paying for email, you potentially can get that free. Additionally, there's things like Google Meet, Google Drive. So if you're paying for things like Zoom or Dropbox, you could potentially get that free with a transition to Google Workspace. Relatively easy to use, but may require a little bit of technical assistance from your web resources. The second part is what we're going to talk about today, the Google Ad Grant, arguably the biggest portion of this program. There's also YouTube for Nonprofits. And this is a place where you get to take over some of the branding on YouTube. So if you are active on YouTube, I strongly encourage you to look at this. It means you get to put some of the messaging in there that otherwise potentially could go to ads. So you can go in and put your messaging. It could be a call to action to sign up. It could be to donate. It could be to learn more. You can take over a little bit of that stuff. And then the Google Maps credits, candidly, I don't know as much about them. They are showing up in the Google Ad Grant some, which I'll explain briefly today. But if you have a physical location, that might be something to explore as well. But the biggest part is the Google Ad Grant. So I'm going to make it sound easy, and getting started is pretty easy. The first step is to apply. Applying is really easy. You're going to go to Google for Nonprofits. You can get started at just Googling Google for Nonprofits, or go to google.com/grants, and you'll apply for Google for Nonprofits. This is the easiest grant you'll ever apply for. It is basically a Google form. You will fill out, put your information in. They use a third-party service to verify you as a nonprofit. It can take about 2 weeks to get approval on that. I've seen it happen in a day. I've seen it happen in a month. So it can take a little bit of time, but the lift is not very hard. Most of you could do it in 15 minutes after this call because you've got all of the information at your fingertips all day long anyway. And I want to say that the term Google Grant is a little bit of a misnomer. It is technically a grant because they are giving you in-kind advertising, and any ad dollars you get can and should be booked as in-kind. But it's really more of a program. This is more along the lines of like a free, the discounted Canva account or things like that that you get, that nonprofits can get. So the second step, once you apply and are approved for the Google for Nonprofits, you activate each of those products. So you can activate Google Workspace if you want to use it. You can activate Google for YouTube for Nonprofits or the Google Maps. But you do have to activate the Google Grant section. And again, this is a very simple process. This takes about 2 minutes. There's a little video you can watch, but you can skip it because you attended this webinar. Just go ahead and you activate the product. There is a website check that happens here, which I'll talk about in a second. But again, very quick process. All in, this is probably a 15-minute process. There are some resources, case studies, and FAQs available on the Google Grants website. And really the key requirements are you have to be a 501c3, so C4s are not eligible. There are also a few exceptions, typically in higher education, pure play private schools, and healthcare. That said, typically among all of those things, the foundations, if they are 501c3 that support those organizations, are typically eligible. So I just recommend to apply, and worst cases, they say no, or that you need to submit more information. There is a requirement too that you need to have a decent website. This is very opaque, but we are seeing with our clients that Google is cracking down on this more now. The best thing I would do is, and I'll try to put it in the chat towards the end, is the Page Speed Insight Report. If you're worried about your website, you can Google Page Speed Insight Report. It's a free web analysis that will show you just some of the basics on your website. But other than that, it's really easy to apply. And we'll move on to step 2, which is actually getting started. So at Ely Hub, I'll talk about this at the end. At Ely Hub, we offer Google Grant Management Services. And we just came up with a really simplified strategy that allows us to charge less than a full service marketing agency. So we're not a full service marketing agency. If you've worked with them in the past at another job or in your current role, we're more of a value-based service. But we tell you this is on our website. We tell you, kind of our secret sauce. This is just a strategy. There's nothing proprietary about this, as much as I wish I could say there is. It's just a strategy that tends to be very effective for nonprofits who maybe don't need all the bells and whistles of a full service agency. So the first campaign, I'm going to get into the weeds. We're going to show you how to do this, is a Performance or AI Max campaign. These are Performance Max or AI Max campaigns are relatively new to Google Grant accounts. AI Max just rolled out recently. Performance Max rolled out a year ago, December. And in the real world, if you were, that Thai restaurant I mentioned earlier, a Performance Max campaign actually allows you to advertise across the entire Google ecosystem. So Google Display, YouTube, Google Maps, of course, paid search, and Google Shopping if that were available. The Google Grant account is only for paid search and a little bit in the maps right now we're seeing. Maybe they'll open it up in the future. But when you go through the example today, you'll see that we recommend building out a Performance Max campaign as if it's a full one, because Google recognizes quality. They want you to put in quality ads and assets. So that'll make a little bit more sense in a second. So the first campaign is highly automated, relatively easy to set up. Google does a lot of the heavy lifting, certainly the way of the future. The second campaign we recommend is what we call your commercial or a branded campaign. This is technically what is called a responsive search campaign. And this is where you get a little bit more control. We're going to show you this as well today for a sample organization on how to get started on both of these tools. And this is where you'll put in up to 15 headlines, a couple of descriptions, and you can add bells and whistles like site links and call outs and things like that. And then the third campaign we recommend is, what's the most important thing you want people to do with your website? What the Google Grant is great at, above all else, is quality website traffic. So if you are looking to get more people to your website, the Google Ad Grant is probably one of the best and most affordable tools for you to use to do that. It's also really good at top of funnel website conversions. So things like newsletter signups, visiting particular page views, events pages, contact us, newsletter, I think I said that, newsletter signups, video views, some of those low barrier to entry. It's really top of funnel, getting people interested in your organization or aware of your organization. It's modestly successful at things like selling things. So if you have a product or service or program that costs, the more it costs, the higher barrier it will be. It's also modestly successful at donations. We try to manage expectations. You're not going to get hundreds of new $100 donors out of nowhere from this. That's not how philanthropy works, but you will likely get some if it's done right. And then it's not as effective on things like galas, corporate sponsorships, things like that. So we recommend that you build at least one more campaign around that top website conversion. So we're going to look at a Boys and Girls Club example today. Their top website, a Big Brothers Big Sisters example. Their top website conversion is they need mentors. Specifically, they need male mentors, male bigs, to help write the balance of the needs in the community here in Phoenix. And so we have a dedicated campaign for them that is focused on big recruitment. We don't focus on gender on that, but we know on the back end that that's the priority. And we build a campaign around that. So again, just to recap, you can get started with as few as one campaign. If you went in and built and just spent your time doing a Performance Max or AI Max campaign, you could potentially start seeing some results. Secondly is a brand campaign. This is, again, you get to control more of the messaging. You're going to see both of these here in a second. And then that third one is just building another campaign, typically responsive search, but it could also be another automated campaign around what's important to you. And you could build out as many campaigns as you want, but the benefits for that are smaller, typically more granular for smaller organizations. So I'm going to play a video here and just show you, we're going to walk through. This is my colleague, Caleb. I used to do this live, but too many issues happened with Google and whatnot. So internet, Google, so we recorded a version of this. So keep in mind, Google changes all the time. So, I mean, literally 2 or 3 times a week, we have to update Google Ads. It's just a quick browser refresh. It's nothing crazy, but so things might look a little different when you get in and start working, but the gist of it should get you started. So I'm going to share the first video now. Okay.
Right, so today I'm going to walk you through the process of setting up a Performance Max campaign in your Google Ad Grant account. So upon logging in, the first thing you're going to want to do is navigate over to this campaign section where you'll see this blue plus icon. So we're going to select a new campaign, and in the signal section, this is where you're going to actually select your campaign objective. The top 3 are likely going to be most campaign objectives that you'll be selecting in a Google Grant account. However, one thing to notate is that prior to setting up a Performance Max campaign, you do have to have conversion actions configured. So beforehand, work with someone like ourselves, your website developer, or a third-party tool or platform that might be able to assist in building out conversion actions. So for this specific example, I'm going to be selecting leads, and Google will automatically populate conversion actions that are relevant to that campaign objective. After selecting continue, this is where you're going to be actually prompted with the ability to build out a traditional search campaign or Performance Max. And upon selecting Performance Max, you're going to be need to provide a final URL, which will be used to be building out assets and the ability to label it. So I recommend that you provide some type of label or naming convention that makes the most amount of sense for you. So upon clicking continue there, you're going to be dropped into the bidding section of your campaign. And as I mentioned, for Performance Max, you're only provided the ability to optimize on conversions. We recommend upon launching a campaign to just use your standard max conversions. However, as time goes on, or depending on your service category or the objective of the campaign, if you have dynamic revenue being able to be pulled in, maybe you do want to leverage conversion value later on. So we're going to select next here. And this is kind of the foundation of your campaign. You're going to be given the option of location targeting as well as languages. So you can go down to city, state, zip code. For this specific example, we're just doing statewide targeting for Arizona. Our language will be English. And then this more settings section will have additional filters that you can apply, whether that's an ad schedule or specific device types that you want to reach. However, I would issue caution here that more of these settings that you do implement potentially will limit the campaign's ability to scale. So just keeping that in mind. So we're going to navigate to the next section, which is the asset generation. And one of the really unique features about the Performance Max campaign is that Google takes a lot of your website content and can assist in the heavy lifting of the asset development. But with that, you want to be really, really certain that the content that you're providing it is of good quality, as well as do a thorough review of everything that it does provide for you. So you're going to provide the final URL that will be used for your ads. So where your ads will be driving once the ad is actually served to the end user. specific products or services. So if you have multiple, you can include them here, or if you want to narrow down to just one specific product or service. You have a generic overview that you'll want to provide, and then Google does pull in some relevant content in areas that may assist in the asset generation. So whether that's your socials or your current website, just to notate, if you don't want anything, you can unselect it right here. For this example, we'll select everything, and then we're going to click that Generate Assets button. One unique feature about a Performance Max is, unlike a traditional search campaign, which groups things, targeting, and ad groups, Performance in Max actually use assets groups. So you can segment out your specific targeting by individual asset groups or leverage specific imagery or text that you want to have only in one asset group. So for this example, we're just going to label this as all assets. We dropped in our business name. You have a few options here for logos. It is really important that you have high resolution logos. We recommend having a square or a landscape logo available. As you can see for this example, we're just implementing one, but I would recommend to have different size and variations because the delivery here can be a little bit more dynamic. Then from an assets perspective, you're going to drop in your final headline URL, final URL here. And then Google provides two different options from a headline standpoint. You have a short headline, which is 30 characters, and a long headline, which will be 90 characters. As you can see, the headlines are going to be that blue text there, while you'll have also the option of implementing descriptions. So that'll be the bottom, more supportive text, a little bit more detail there. Those are also going to be 90 characters. Anytime you build out assets here from a headline standpoint, we recommend at least implementing 4+. From a long headline, anywhere from 3+, and then same goes for description. And Google will help assist you on actually building this out. But again, just taking the time to review it. This is where a lot of the heavy lifting is going to be taking place on the campaign creation side. And then all the signals that you did provide Google with, whether that was your website or your social, it's going to automatically pull in potential images. You also do have the option of selecting from previous images that have been uploaded, pulling from your website or social, uploading manually, looking at free stock images, or you can provide Google with a prompt and it'll actually develop an image for you. So you can choose up to 20 here. Sometimes it is nice to, not use all 20 slots. You want to have a nice combination of square and landscape imagery. And then from that standpoint, you can always optimize or change out your imagery as time goes on. Performance Max campaigns also do support the availability to leverage video assets. For this example, we don't have any. It's not a requirement. It's just kind of a nice to have if you do have that capability or you have great video assets already available to you. Site link extensions, anytime you launch a campaign, whether that's a traditional paid search responsive campaign or Performance Max, based upon Google's requirements, you have to launch with at least 4 site link extensions. Call to actions, you can either automate or provide a few different here that are just standard call to actions. For this example, we'll select automated. Asset optimization, we have text, enhanced. And then this is where some additional targeting comes into play. So for search themes, you want to have at least 3 to 10. That's kind of the sweet area. You can have up to 25. So if you feel so inspired, you can definitely build that out. But at least having 3 will kind of set the stage, and this should be focused on the individual product or service that you are supporting with this asset group. You also do have the option of selecting different signals from either your website or other audience segments that are available to you. For this example, we won't be selecting those. We'll just kind of move forward here. And essentially, you've done a lot of the heavy lifting. At this point, you'll be selecting your budget. So I've selected $333 just out of the chance of it being able to scale to that full $10,000 budget. Or if you have other campaigns running right now and you want to give priority to this asset, or you want to make sure that your daily spend doesn't go entirely to a Performance Max campaign, you can always make adjustments later on. And then the next window here will just provide an overview of the summary. So I would recommend that you really scan through this, make sure everything is in place. If there's any warning signs, you address those. And with that, you have the ability to just publish your campaign. And that's essentially how you build out a Performance Max campaign for your Google Grant account.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about the blurry video. I'm going to pull up a higher res one for the next video, and I will. I believe these slides will be made available for you if they're recording. I can also provide the. They're unpublished, but I can provide the links in the chat here in a minute. Next, we're going to go on to a similar video, also Caleb, and this one's going to be just a little bit more in the weeds. This is if you've ever built an ad in the past, this is going to look a lot more familiar to you. And so we will, let me pull that up for you here, but I'm going to pull up the higher res version for this video. I did put the link in for the Page Speed Insight report. So if you haven't used that, check it out. It's a pretty cool report. Very technical, so I don't understand all of it, but hopefully you will. Okay, what happened? Okay. Oh no. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, thought I lost everyone. Okay, here we go with the second video.
Well, I'm going to walk you through in your Google Grants account. So when you log in, you'll likely be greeted with a window very similar to mine. Right now, we're in the campaign section under the overview tab. And all we're going to have to do is select this blue button that says new campaigns, click again, and you're immediately prompted with a campaign objective. For most of our clients, they'll likely run a leads or website traffic. This is essentially saying, how is your campaign going to be optimized, or what is your ultimate goal here? For this example, we're going to select website traffic. Regardless of the goal that you do select, it is going to give a drop down of all of your conversion actions that are currently configured. If you don't have any currently configured, nothing will appear in this window. And if you do need help or assistance setting up conversion tracking, because it can be a little bit more technical, you'll likely need to work with a third party, someone like ourselves who can do it, or potentially someone who might be overseeing your website or on the development side. For this specific example, we're just going to continue forward. And then lastly, in kind of the foundation of the campaign setup, it'll prompt you with a campaign type. For Google Grant accounts, you will only be able to select a search campaign type. All these other campaign types are not available in a grant account. And then lastly, on this section here, we're going to drop in our website. It will prompt you with a campaign name. For this specific example, we'll just run with what they provided us. But really, we encourage anyone to use some form of standardized naming conventions that are typically focused around campaign topic or theme, something that makes it a little bit easier to know what the campaign's all about and potentially what keywords are being targeted in it. We're going to select new. It prompts you now to a bidding section. This is essentially saying, how is your campaign going to be optimized? It provides a few different options. immediately it's conversion oriented or clicks based. So are you trying to drive conversions, or are you trying to drive clicks from your ads to your website? For this case, we're going to select clicks, and then we're going to click next. Networks here is actually a feature that'll be unavailable in your grant account. So no need to really elaborate on these. A very critical and important thing is to understand your location targeting. Immediately, it'll provide all countries and territories. And while that might make sense for your business, more or less, it likely won't for most individuals. You want to ensure that, if you're only servicing a specific area or city, that you're targeting within a relevant area. And so for this example, we're going to actually select enter another location, and we'll just put in Phoenix, Arizona. So they do provide a wide range. So more or less, if you're targeting a fairly decently sized city, even really small cities, you can see here, Phoenix, New York City is only 5,000. Google will actually have a drop down available to you. So right there. Language, it's going to be pre-configured to your account setting. In this case, it's English. We don't need to worry about audience segments. Match types. This typically will provide you with some type of option of using different match types. We recommend that all clients who use Google Grants do use broad match, but I won't go too in-depth into that technical application. I would also recommend that, if this is your first account, or you might feel a little bit overwhelmed by the creation of everything, to really lean into all the automation that Google does provide. So for this specific example, we're going to lean into the automatically create assets. You just want to ensure that you're reviewing the messaging that's being put out there. It's relevant to your business, and anything that's automatically created, you just want to give it a good gut check. So from there, we're going to select next. This is taking the website and some content from your website to actually create some ads, as well as do some keyword targeting. So taking your website there, and it's doing active keyword targeting. You can see it only came up with 3. Again, you'll want to review this. Typically, it can range very drastically. Might only pull in 3, might pull in 50. So you just want to kind of monitor that, again, ensuring that the keywords seem relevant to you and your business and your ultimate goal. But for this example, we'll kind of continue forward on the keyword side of things. Ads are very, very important. Final URL is essentially where these ads will be driving to. So if you want the homepage, if you want the donation page, just be sure to update that. For this example, we'll continue with our primary homepage. Display path is something we don't necessarily need to worry about. It's more vanity. It doesn't have a direct application for most clients. If you do have a call number that you'd like to include, you can add that here. And then for headlines, ads are actually prompt you to insert 15 different headlines. At a minimum, you need to include 3. And the great thing is, by us providing our domain and our website, Google does do a lot of heavy lifting on just providing you with some potential examples. So I could go Google Ad Grant for nonprofit, Google Grant Management, that one, results-driven Google Grant. You'll see now that I have 3, I could technically continue forward. I'd recommend at a minimum probably providing about 5, but the more the better. And then also there is regulation on just how many characters you can have. You'll see here it's limited to 30. Descriptions, I'm just going to select what they're providing me. Again, you'll just want to be mindful of reviewing it and ensuring you're comfortable with the messaging that is out there. Descriptions, you're able to provide a total of 4, and they're limited to 90 characters. Images are great to include if you have them. There are some stricter regulations on what you're able to put there, so we'll continue to move forward for this. Business name, we'll just drop in our business name here. Logos, again, if you're able to provide them, that's great. And then site link extensions. We always recommend to our clients that you provide site link extensions. They don't always appear when your ad serves, but they're a great reference and resource for users when your ad does appear. Typically, these will be things from your website header. So, if you have a donation page, here we have an About Us or Blog Center. So you want to highlight some of those big components on your website, as well as things that might be a little bit more critical to your business. Especially if you have a donation, great place to put here. So we always recommend that you fill that out. It prompted with 2 pre-generated site links here. 4 would be great. 2 is just a minimum. So we're going to continue forward there and select next. And then one of the last things is actually assigning a budget. Because grant accounts are provided $10,000 in free ad spend each month, in theory, you'll want to set each campaign to $329. There's different strategies that you could deploy, but for this example, we'll be setting it to $329 to hopefully ensure that we get the full $10,000 worth of spend if there's enough volume there. But there's also a lot of technical application that we need to be aware of in the back end with that $10,000. And then finally the review, and you'll push it live, and you can see that Google there is actually prompting me to just do an authentication. But from here, you've essentially, we'll do one final review, push the campaign live, and you have your first paid search campaign out in the market.
All right, let me hopefully stop the right screen. There we go. Great. I see a few questions coming in. We'll get to those at the end if I haven't answered it during the chat. So those are the two really that kind of get you started. The one thing that's a little tricky on this, especially with the Performance Max, and Caleb mentions it, you do have to have conversions set up. And a conversion is in a website is anything you can track on the website. And it requires the Google Tag Manager to be installed, or Google Tags. We recommend Google Tag Manager to be installed. Very easy to install on most website platforms. Also fairly easy to set up conversions, but it does require more technical assistance. So your Google Grant will work better if you have them set up. So you might want to work with your web guru or also layer that in. If not, you can use what's called a max click strategy. Typically not as effective. You may not see scalability, meaning the ads may not spend as well. Because Google, regardless of what you think about Google and all that's going on right now, Google genuinely wants people to find what they're looking for on the internet as quickly as possible. And they're just trying to make a little bit of money along the way. So they focus on quality and intent, and they want that to be the case. So even in their ads. And then the other thing I'll mention, and Caleb really didn't mention it, but there's that handy little kind of dashboard at the top of the ads that tells you what to work on to make it a good, better, or average or great ad. And you can it's really easy to go through and work through keywords. It'll give you suggestions to do that. So there's a lot of tools in Google. As Caleb also mentioned, we recommend leaning into the automation where you can. This is the way of the future. It's part of the reason we price low, is because we just knew this was coming. And it's going to be more of a babysitting kind of guide as opposed to the active management that's needed unless you're a really big organization. At least that's our view. So that's step 1 and 2. Step 1 is to apply and get access to your account. Step 2 is to build 1 or 2 campaigns to get started. And then step 3 is to monitor your progress. And we're not going to go into a ton of this today, but Google Ads has, I'll show you this really quickly. Google Ads has a great dashboard to show you the reports. Things here you're going to look at are the overview, which you saw that in there. It'll show you just quickly how much is spent in the last 30 days or last 7 days, however you want. Some areas you want to also look at are keywords and quality scores. These are easily found on the campaigns. What keywords are performing well, which ones are not, and the quality scores. Again, Google matches quality with intent. So if an ad quality score is an 8 and your competitor is a 4, you're going to win that auction at a lower cost, because Google would rather have the higher quality content than the extra income. And in this case, they're giving the ads away for free. And then there's also recommendations. So when you log into your account, typically there's recommendations at the top that'll tell you. And some of them are very technical. Basically, what I tell people who are getting started to, if you know what it means and it makes sense to you, go ahead and apply it. If not, you can just simply dismiss it. It's not going to hurt anything if you dismiss it. Some of them are catered towards paid accounts where Google's trying to nudge you to spend more. So a lot of them just don't apply, like bidding strategies and things like that. So, but things like adding keywords or ad groups or improving ad quality, those will pop up. Those are great recommendations. And then obviously, I think most of us are now familiar that AI is a great tool for these things. Here's just some sample prompts that you can use. You know, if you're using Chat GPT or Gemini or anything, a simple prompt such as, you are a marketing specialist at yournonprofit.com, write a 10-character headline for paid search for www.yournonprofit.com. Write 6 30-character descriptions for paid search for www.yournonprofit.com. Recommend 50 keywords for search for your nonprofit, and organize them into ad groups. Ad groups are themes of keywords. Your responsive search campaign should have at least 3 ad groups, ideally 3 to 5. And each of those ad groups should have roughly 10 to 15 keywords in there. So what that would mean is if you were a boys and girls club, you might have an ad group that's just your brand. You know, it's obviously boys and girls club and the variations of that, but it may also, you know, we might have a thing around summer camps, you know, or after school programs, and you'd have words related around those. Those would be different ad groups. A couple of tips. Before I jump into these, I want to mention 2 things on your website. One, we recommend, if you don't have an FAQ page, we recommend that you add an FAQ page. What are those 10 questions you answer all the time about your organization? And put them on your website. At the end of the day, that's all the internet is answering questions for people. And being able to just have those ready, available are really handy. Yeah, and then we'll go in here into some final tips. You can do this yourself. We do find nonprofits who do it, and sometimes they do an okay job with it. It is hard to do by yourself. I would recommend it's probably an hour or 2 a week to get started. You know, and that's going to be YouTube videos, using tools like Coursera or Udemy to polish up your skills in there. But it can be done, especially if you focus on simplicity, going through that. You know, if you do have a resource to do it, we have competitors out there. I'm happy to point you in their direction. You know, there's some of them there's pros and cons to each of us. If you currently have a web company or a digital agency, you might want to ask them if they can help get set up, or maybe the tag manager, some of those things. I would recommend that you try to find someone who has nonprofit experience. The Google grant is kind of backwards in a lot of ways. So what I mean by that is, if you're a paid agency trying to work with that Thai restaurant that we talked about at the beginning, you want to get the lowest cost per click. We take a different approach in that we want to focus on quality. So we actually want higher cost per clicks, typically in the $5 to $15 range. And then we recommend, if you are using a Google grant, to avoid agencies that work off a percentage. Some agencies will charge you a percentage. If they get you $5,000, they'll charge you 10% or 15%. The challenge with that is it's really easy to fake traffic and get quality. So we want to, you know, go with a flat fee, or someone who does an hourly rate or something, would be our recommendation. Also, incremental improvements are the goal. You know, this is constantly changing. You constantly get new tools. So, you know, if you set these up, spend a couple of hours setting them up, and then go in once a week and make any optimizations, review some things, incremental improvements to do it. There are free or very easy resources on YouTube, Udemy. There's some great Udemy or Coursera courses out there for like $15. They're like 30 hours long, and they'll teach you everything you need to know about Google Ads. But I would just make sure you recommend that you get one that's at least 2025, but they probably have 2026 versions out now. So make sure that it's relevant because things do change all the time. As I mentioned, 3 to 5 ad groups per campaign. A lot of those recommendations you can auto apply. So things like, adding new keywords, turning off keywords that aren't working, you can auto apply those. So you can automate a lot of this. And then Google Tag Manager, this is more advanced. It does take a little bit of technical skill and know-how, but getting the Google Tag Manager installed on your website and setting up some just basic conversions, things like page views, donation clicks, email clicks, video views, anything like that is going to help you have reporting to show you what works on this. The last thing I'll say before I go into this is just manage expectations. Most nonprofits don't get the full 10,000. It is typically a function of geographic reach and how broad of a service are you providing. So what I generally say is for our clients and why we have kind of tiered pricing is for local nonprofits, if you're focusing on a single city or county or maybe a full DMA, like a Phoenix region or something like that, you're going to get probably between $1,000 and $3,000 a month in free advertising if it's done well. If you're a statewide organization or kind of in a large metropolitan area like Southern California or New York or something like that, you may get in the kind of $3,000 to $5,000 range. And then most of our national nonprofits, if you're a nationwide organization, they tend to get close to the $10,000 a month on full, the $8,000 to $10,000 a month. And we charge a little bit more for that because there's a lot more we have to do to make decisions on what to spend on and whatnot. But we just want to manage expectations. So this is a good use of your time or not. And then lastly, I'll just tell you about us. We will do this all for you. We start at $199 a month. It's $199 for local, $299 for statewide or regional up to 5 states, and then nationwide is $399. And we try to do it all for you. It's typically about an hour of work for you, 30-minute phone call with me or one of my team, and then just a few admin tasks we'll need from you, like an onboarding form and some website stuff. And then we do have an offer. So if anyone is interested, I'm always happy to answer questions or help you get into your account. So just email me. My info will be up here in a second. But a special offer for Tax 990 clients or potential clients, we will do free setup, which is normally $500 and the first month free, just to make sure that it's up and running before you even see a bill in there. And then, as I mentioned, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or email me. And then I'll start going through some questions. Morgan, is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to pop some questions in here for you.
Great.
Let's see. I'm just going to, there we go. Perfect.
Oh, great. Handy. It is a 6-month contract that then goes month to month. And the reason we do 6 months is it does take time to work. We want you to just manage the expectation that it does take 4 to 6 months for this fully to work. That said, you have my word, and now it's recorded. If it's not working, we're not going to charge you. So, for example, if we can't get it to spend or it's too niche, which does happen from time to time, we're not going to charge you for that. We'll do our best and try to get it there. So, great question, Nancy. Great question. They do not provide tax forms, but 2 things. One is if you use an organization like us or an agency, you can use the reports that we send you because they're straight from Google Data Studio, or it's really easy to pull a year-end report for how much advertising you got. So you can put it as in kind. You can book it either monthly. We recommend booking it monthly, but some people want to book it quarterly or annually. So I think that answers your question, Miles. David, I would recommend trying to add some more conversions in there. If you have engagement, make sure you've got page views turned on. You can do specific page views. If you've got a programs page, that's the most important. Maybe start with that. Button click are also easy conversions to set up. Which means, if you've got a button that says, donate now or click here or register, all you really have to do is set that up. It's not a lot of coding. And that would potentially help. And then also just check your website quality. A lot of times when we see traffic issues, if it's not, some nonprofits are really niche, so there's just not a lot of search volume. So that certainly can be part of it. But if you don't think that's it, check your website. A lot of times it's website quality, or website speed or performance that are an issue, or even a technical issue on the back end. So great question, David. Yes, there are two, Karim, there are two completely different things. Google Ads, what we talked about today are paid search. And Facebook ads are also paid search, are also ads, but they're typically display social feeds. There's a lot of similarity, but they're very different platforms. Good question. Stacy, it is proven? No. Do I think it will work? Yes. I've talked to a lot of churches over the years. I actually do some teaching through ASU for churches. And I've never been able to talk anyone into trying it. So if you're interested, please give me a call and maybe we can test it out. But it should work for a church. And we do have a hyper local rate. So if you're a super small organization in a small area, we actually have a little bit cheaper version as well. But it should work for a church. It's a great thing for that. Great question. Yes, as long as the church is a 501c3 and that festival supports the mission of the church, then it should be eligible, even if it has a different website. So there's some things you got to do on the back end. You got to make sure that that website is registered, but or you can just add it as if it's a program page under the church, you can just focus on that. So the short answer is yes, and it should work great.
Great. Awesome. All right. I think we're kind of running up on our hour mark. And Todd, thank you so much for this. It was just awesome to hear all the, good things that you can bring. This is just incredible. If you join late on the webinar, don't worry, we are recording it. It'll be available on our website. If you need to reach Todd, you can reach out to him. We do thank you for joining the webinar today at Tax 990. And we hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet everyone.